Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King. You may not recognize me because I've gotten rid of the ridiculous Alan Moore hobo look. But I'm back, and today we're at the final part. We've reached the end of our journey through the complete run of Warlord. It's been a while, several videos to get to this point, each video with a diminishing number of viewers. I'm pretty sure that by the end of this video, the only person left watching will be Mike Grell himself. But I really want to get to this, talk about one of my favorite fantasy series. I'm going to be doing more Complete Run Madness looks at some of my other complete runs of different fantasy series because I'm very much in fantasy comic mode right now. Just a quick tease because I'm so excited about this. In the link down below, if you look at the description, there's going to be a link to the pre-launch page for my new Kickstarter for my epic fantasy series Quest. First issue's coming out in May. There's also another link where you can download a special sneak preview, 5-page preview, the first 5 pages of the story, and a bunch of cool bonus material and all the variant covers and stuff. So I'm really excited about that. I'm loving just immersing myself in all the fantasy stuff. So you feel free to check that out. That's one of the reasons why I had started pulling out my old issues of Warlord to go through, because I'm just so excited to be working on this fantasy comic. So, in the last episode of our complete run of Warlord, we reached the end, but there's always more. That was the last issue of Warlord, but today we're going to go through the annuals. We're going to go through Warlord Volume 2. We're going to go through Warlord Volume 4. We're going to explain why we're not going through Warlord Volume 3, and there's other stuff. Appearances of the character in between. In the long period where he didn't have his own title after the original series ended in the early 90s. So let's just jump right into it. One thing, that a comic that I've mentioned in previous videos but didn't show, it's Secret Origins number 16, which has the secret origin of Warlord and Our Man and Amazing Man. But the one we want to talk about, of course, is Warlord. It's important because this builds more stuff about his rivalry with his childhood bully, Danny, who, as we saw last episode, eventually ends up on Skartaris and turns into one of the big bad guys in this series for a while. A lot of that groundwork is laid in Warlord 91, which is a retelling of his origin, and then also in this, which is another retelling of its origin. This one's interesting because it focuses more on his time in the Vietnam War, so it's kind of cool. I've also mentioned these annuals before and mentioned that I should have been talking about them as we were going through the years because they do tie into the main story. Here's annual number 1. Some of these I don't have much of a recollection of, so I'm looking forward to rereading them. Annual 2 is important because it introduces Christopher, who becomes one of the main supporting characters in the series, starting here and running all through Carrie Burkett's series about the war with New Atlantis. Issue 3, they've really got everything on the cover here. They've got robots, dinosaurs. They got Demos, is supposed to be long dead at this point. We've got Christopher. We've got Shakira riding a dragon. So don't really remember much about the story there, but here's one that I bought off the stands. This is my original copy. You can tell because it's ripped and stained and just beat to heck, but I got this one off the stands. It's Warlord Annual 4, and this again is from the Carrie Burkett era, and it's got a important story because it kind of ties up, and when I say ties up, I mean does not at all tie up, the stuff with Tinder. Now, Tinder, of course, is Warlord's son Joshua, who was kidnapped in Warlord number 15, was cloned, and Warlord Travis Morgan killed the clone of his son in issue 21 in self-defense, and then has been a sad sack ever since because he feels like a horrible person for choosing his own life over that of his son. He doesn't realize that his actual son is still alive, and in fact, it's the child Tinder who has helped him in a few different storylines. In issues of 56 to 60 was an important part of that storyline, and also is an important supporting character during Kerry Burkett's run in the war with the New Atlantis from issues 73 to 100. In this issue, Tinder's got this pet monster thing that he pals around with. That pet gets warped into a horrible demon monster, and at the end, Tinder feels like it's all his fault, and so he leaves. And that's basically it for the regular series with Tinder. It leaves on a bit of a cliffhanger because Warlord's daughter, Jennifer Morgan, is pretty sure that Tinder is actually Joshua, but she doesn't. At the end of the issue, she decides not to say anything to Travis because she wants to be sure. She doesn't want to get his hopes up. And she's like, I'll find the child myself. And then once I'm sure of it, I'll mention it to Morgan. That never happens. Per gets off the series. They just decide to abandon this plot thread, I guess. And when we pick up stuff later in some of the issues I'm going to show you in a minute, there's no mention of it. So it goes on and on and on for decades after this. Annual 5, Grell still returning to do cool covers. I hate the banner, the annual banner up there. It's so ugly. The Uxmal encounter. Don't remember anything about this comic. But I do remember something about this comic. Annual 6, which has an even uglier banner. Because this is guest starring, yes, for some reason it has the New Gods in it. This is during the era where they decided to just throw everything at the wall and bring in all the characters they can think of from other DC titles to try and boost the sales. And the effect of that is to completely ruin the series, and this sucks. So that was it for the original series. After the end of that series, there was a gap of just a few years. After the end of Warlord, in 1992, there's a new Warlord miniseries, and is written by Mike Grell. Some great covers by Mike Grell. Here's issue 1. Check out these awesome covers. There he is with Tara. Here's issue 2 with Jennifer. Issue 3, we see him leading the slave rebellion. And I'm pretty sure this is Machiste, aka Machiste, here in the background, the only black character in the comic. And then 4, it's Shakira. So what's happening in this storyline is Warlord himself is not in any of those issues. We've jumped ahead a number of years, and now Tinder is an adult. He still doesn't know that Travis Morgan is his father, and he's become like a bard, and he's wandering Skartaris, trying to learn the truth behind all the legends of the Warlord. And so all of these people that knew him are talking about him and basically making him seem like a total jackwagon. So the upshot of this series is basically Grell deconstructing the character of the Warlord and basically saying, like, he's a man of action, he's not really a leader, because in several times over the course of the series, he puts together these big rebellions and he's great at fighting them. But once it gets to the point where the real work needs to be done, right? And they need to, like, come up with a government and actually address the problems, he just disappears off on another adventure. And so a lot of this is the supporting characters in the series being like, yeah, Travis Morgan's been built up to be this great hero, and he's a great warrior, but he's very good at inspiring people, but he's very bad at leading people. And so they kind of make him seem like a selfish jerk. In issue 5, Demos comes back from the dead yet again. So he died in issue 21. Then he died again in issue 27. He died again in issue 50. and I don't remember if he was brought back in Annual 3 and then died again, but it's very possible. And then he stayed dead for a while, but he comes back to life again in issue 5. And this is where Travis Morgan, who's basically out drinking and just fighting with sort of like a death wish sort of thing, he's out there, and he comes back to save the day. And then we see him in action, and we see that, like, when the fighting starts, he sort of shows up and just trashes everybody. And then, just as everyone said earlier, when the fighting ends, he disappears because he's not interested in picking up the pieces. He's just interested in breaking the stuff. So, as a fan of the character, I really did not like this series at all. I was so excited that they were bringing Warlord back, and then Mike Grell was coming back to the series, and then to basically have this sort of deconstruction of the character where they're just pointing out what an absolute dillweed he is, and how all of his flaws and none of his good parts. Really didn't like it. I appreciate it as an adult more, but hugely disappointing to me. Okay. After this, or actually before this, there was an appearance of Warlord, and I don't have it handy, but it's in Green Arrow 27 and 28. At some point, I should do a video showing off my Green Arrow collection, because I do have a complete run of the Grell Green Arrow. And that was a really cool, because it had Grell writing, but they brought in Dan Jurgens on pencils, who is also associated with Warlord. And they did this thing where Travis is back in the surface world, and he shows up in Seattle, and everyone keeps mistaking him for Green Arrow because they look exactly the same. And that story was very satisfying, much more satisfying than this. After this, he disappears again for a number of years. So this is the last issue. This is cover dated June of 92. So actually, the first issue of this limited series is cover dated January 92, so it actually came out in 91. So this is 92. Next time we get Travis Morgan, it is 1997, right? So let me back that up. That's wrong. It's 96, okay? He starts appearing in several things in pretty short order here, in quick succession. Some of this, I think, is to do with copyright stuff, like trademark things. They need to keep using the character to keep it trademarked. But as we'll see, some of it has to do with the creators. First of all, not where you would expect him, but he shows up in Justice League Task Force, numbers 34 to 36. And here we have, it's Martian Manhunter, but he's sort of doing like a Conan-esque thing because he's on Skartaris. It's a cool cover. I'm not sure I'm down with the inking choices of having just this whole part of his head and face and stuff in shadow. I don't think that does... Maybe that would be better if the coloring were different, but it feels very muddy to me in what should be a super cool image. This is around the time they started doing the digital coloring, and they really didn't get that right for a while. But here we have Warlord on the cover, 35, stranded in the world of the Warlord. There's some guy fighting Warlord. It looks like the Black Knight from the Avengers, but obviously it's not. And then in 36, God War, and it's Warlord wearing a totally weird costume, and he's riding some sort of thing. I don't know, it's the 90s art-wise. And then we get 1997, which is a great year for Warlord fans. First, we get Warlord in 3 issues of Green Arrow. It's in 118 to 120. And here we have... this is during the period where Oliver Queen was dead. He died in issue 100. And so what happens here, in a nice callback to that other Green Arrow appearance that I mentioned from several years earlier, is that Connor, the new Green Arrow, basically gets word that supposedly Oliver Queen is alive, that he supposedly survived the plane crash in issue 100, and that he's been captured, whatever. So he goes to track him down, and what he discovers is Yes, it's actually Warlord. It's Travis Morgan, and just like what happened in the previous Green Arrow issues, everyone just got them confused because they look exactly the same. So he appears in 3 issues of this. The last one's cover dated May 97. And then, without even skipping a month, boom, next month it's June of 97, and it's the new Teen Titans. The new Teen Titans uh, end up in Skartaris. So in the Green Arrow story, Warlord was on the surface and had gotten captured, and so he goes back to Skartaris. Well, apparently the Teen Titans show up like immediately after. Now this is by Dan Jurgens, who had worked on Warlord during the Kerry Burkett run, and he's obviously a Warlord fan, and so it's not really a surprise that he brings back Warlord here. And this story runs a little while. So issue 9, here's issue 10. Don't think anyone else remembers this run of Teen Titans at all. And then issue 11. So he's in those 3 issues. Last one, cover dated August 97. Okay, we got our next Warlord guest appearance in 3 issues of Aquaman. Now, I've talked a lot about the connections between Aquaman and Green Arrow because a lot of stuff, and Warlord, because a lot of stuff in Warlord has to do with Atlantis, the New Atlanteans, all this stuff. So it makes a lot of sense for him to appear in Aquaman. Here he is, issue 71. You can see this, I think this is during the period where he had lost a hand, and now he's got like, instead of a fishhook, he's got like a robot hand. It's before he got his hand back. 72, here they are fighting side by side against dinosaurs. And this story comes to an end in 73. And I should mention that once again, the writer of this run is Dan Jurgens. Now, 73 here, we got an interesting team here. Dan Jurgens writing. We got Steve Epting on pencils. And the cover is by Kaluta. It's unfortunate that Kaluta is forced to draw this absolutely stupid looking version of Aquaman, but the rest of the cover is really cool. So that was cover dated, that's the year 2000. So it's cover dated September, October, November of 2000. That's Aquaman 71 to 73. Okay, now, following this, there's a bit of a break before we see Warlord again. And what we get is Warlord Volume 3, which I do no longer have. And Warlord Volume 3 features art by Bart Sears. And the reason I no longer have it, it is not part of the rest of this continuity. It's an actual reboot of the series. So it basically starts over with Travis crashing his jet plane or whatever into Skartaris, and it retells the whole story, but with a new version of Travis Morgan and a new version of Demos. It's the same basic story, but sort of just redone. I guess they figured this was, I forget what year, 2005, 2006, or whatever. I guess they figured it's been 30 years since it was originally came out. It's time for a modern spin on it. And that only lasted like 9 issues, and it wasn't great. It was one of these written for the trade things where it basically took 9 issues for them to get to the same point as the original series got in 1. And so it just wasn't that good. So I got rid of it because it wasn't really my Warlord. But not long after that, just a couple years later, we get back the real Warlord. And I mean the real Warlord because starting in June 2009, it's Warlord Volume 4. It's Mike Grell writing and doing the covers. And there's some great covers. I've said it before, but Grell's Warlord covers. Grell's great at covers to begin with, just across the board in all his titles. But Warlord has, for me, consistently like the best covers in comics. It's just great covers from Grell, and he does some great stuff here that I think most people have probably never seen because the sales on this were very small and it didn't last very long. I don't think most people are even aware this comic exists, frankly. But check out this awesome Grell cover. Just the lush, the colors with his pencils, the detailing. It's just tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous. And he does a lot of these covers. Check out this, issue 2 with Tara. Three with Shakira. Tremendous. Just fantastic work. 4. 5. Now here's a very Grell cover. It's got the circle. It's got Shakira. Six. These covers are just something else. I'm going to tell you what happens in the story in a minute. 7. Look at this cover. All written by Grell. And some of them more than just written by Grell. He actually does the artwork on the interior artwork on some of these. Check out some of the interior artwork. Right, double page spreads. Look at this. Just some great stuff. 8, again, all Grell issue. 9, all Grell with another classic Warlord sword, gun, circle, Shakira, the whole thing. Just some great art. Issue 10. Got the women of Warlord. We got Jennifer Morgan, Tara, Shakira, and Mariah. 11. Okay, here's Grell back doing this one issue. He's got Chad Hardin back on interiors, but basically starting with issue 7, it's all Grell. 7, all Grell. 8, all Grell. 9, 10. He's doing the writing of the cover, but all Grell. 11 and 12 as well. And here we have Demos. Yes, Demos again. And here it's Joshua. It's Tinder. Right? And we also have Machiste. We have Match Iced here. But that's what we got here. So finally it culminates in here, issue 12. It's May 2010. Great, all Grell. Great Grell cover. And in this issue, basically Warlord discovers finally that Joshua's his son, and he realizes this right in the middle of a sword fight with Joshua, and he basically intentionally sort of, instead of parrying, which is what Joshua was expecting, parrying a thrust, he just drops his guard and Joshua accidentally kills him. And so it's the reverse of what happened way back in issue 21, 30 years earlier. And it's basically the end of Travis Morgan. So Travis dies in the same issue where he finally discovers that Joshua's still alive. And he sort of, I guess, feels like he makes up for, like, that was his big thing that has ruined his life, that he had killed his son. And so I guess he decided to let his son experience the same thing. I don't know. It was a bit frustrating ending. I didn't quite understand it. But the upshot is this is the end of Travis Morgan. It's the end of this plot thread that had gone for 31 years finally resolved here. And then starting in the next issue, issue 13, we have the new Warlord, because Joshua Morgan takes up his father's mantle and becomes the new Warlord. Now, the series ended shortly after this, but we do get a few issues of Joshua Morgan as Warlord. Here's 14. You can see he's wearing the helmet. He's got the sword and shield, but he has his own like suit of armor sort of look. He's got the elements. He's got the saber-tooth skull with the chain, but he's wearing it over like a leather vest. Here's another good look at it, at his costume. 15. And then the final issue is 16. Great cover of the new Warlord, Joshua Morgan, riding a black Pegasus with classic Grell circle motif behind him. So, tremendous artwork from Grell. This is another all Grell issue. It was interesting to see him sort of try and continue the legacy with Joshua as the main character. I'm not sure it quite worked, but it really felt like he had told the story he wanted to tell once he got to issue 12. So regardless of what the sales are, I think it was sort of destined to end there. I'm actually a little surprised it didn't just end with issue 12, given that. But for me, it was very exciting to finally have that storyline wrapped up. Finally wrapped up that storyline. I don't know what's happened with Warlord since then. I'm guessing he must have appeared somewhere, because that was 2010. Now it's 2023. For trademark reasons, I'm sure they've brought him back. They've had some multiple reboots of the entire DC universe. So whatever version they bring back isn't going to be quite the same version. But I'm sure they've brought back Travis Morgan somewhere. I'm just not aware of it because I haven't really been following modern comics. But that's where the story of the original Warlord ends. Mike Grell returning to finally tie up all those loose ends. So that's it. Thanks very much for watching. Again, if you're Mike Grell and you're the only person still watching the video at the end, thanks for watching. Thanks for the comics. Everyone else, thank you also for watching. And again, I'm excited to be starting my own epic fantasy journey with first issue of my comic Quest. You can check out the links in the description down below. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.